Well, good morning and welcome to another week on my waterlogged allotment. I'm having to stand very close to the camera because it's absolutely tipping down, and yet over there it's a lovely sunrise. How frustrating is that? And yeah, it's been another wet week on the allotment and at work. Funnily enough, as is tending to be the pattern now, yesterday was glorious. It was over 20 degrees, beautiful sunshine, and we had a lovely day. We spent most of it out in the back garden. Well, I did, under direction from the kitchen window. We went out for lunch, and that'll lead me on to something in a moment. But yeah, it's really, I mean, I know I've said it, and I'm sick of repeating it myself, let alone you listening to it. But this is really god awful. I mean, yesterday spring really did look fantastic. Everywhere was beautiful, the flowers were out, and of course any view looks wonderful with a backlit clear blue sky. But on the plot, yeah, I've given up on the potatoes, kestrel second earlies that I planted. I planted 23 seed potatoes, 2 have come up in the last week. I've had a little bit of success with the carrots. I've now seen some carrots have come up in the tubs. No success with the parsnips. None of my chitted parsnips have germinated, which is a first. And you saw me in the start bringing in a load more stuff. Most of that is flowers, and we've got a week away in the New Forest in May, so I won't post for another couple of weeks. It's my 60th birthday, so we're going down with the caravan to the New Forest. My family will get together on my birthday for a lovely meal, I hope. So I brought that lot up here with a view to John, my friend, watering it for me, although I've seen the forecast for the week we're away and it's consistently god awful, so I don't think he'll have to water anything. So yeah, I mean, what else can I tell you? My second early seed potatoes have failed. Some of my carrots have come up, none of the parsnips. On the plot, the peas are doing okay. Maybe we'll have a look around later if we get a dry spell, although the forecast is, like I say, pretty awful. But I'm going to go inside and get a warm up because it's cold out here now, and I'll tell you about the potatoes. So yes, my seed potatoes. 2 out of 23, not very happy about that. I obviously went too early, the ground must, I mean, when I put them in, the ground seemed okay. But, once I'd put them in, we had, well, weeks of heavy deluging rain. So, yeah, I'm guessing they've just rotted off. However, we went out for lunch yesterday, and there's a garden centre near us, Raglan. We always enjoy going there. One of the things about modern society is because Britain is totally overcrowded, wherever you try to go for lunch, there are queues, or they haven't got a table. I mean, you probably know the story. But for some reason, Raglan Garden Centre, and it was the busiest we've ever seen it, but they had lots of tables, and the restaurant moves along quite quickly. You get served very well, and it's good food. So we went there, and we had a wander around, and they still had seed potatoes. And I couldn't help myself. Oh dear, I mean, I'm just going to try and repeat the same mistake, I think, because like I say, it's pounding down out there now. The forecast is dry Monday, Tuesday this week, but then the rest of the week is a complete washout, and the following week, again, a complete washout. This is the first, that seed potato is called Estima. Never come across it before. It says it's slug resistant, which is always good on my plot, and it says it's drought resistant. Well, whoopee! Oh, do you know, I've got a certain reputation in my family for being a bit grumpy. I wake up every morning cheerful. I am a morning person. You will have guessed that. But the reason I end up grumpy by the end of the day is I meet people. So, you know, I'm naturally a cheerful person. You know, my family are all shaking their heads right now, the ones that watch this. But it's life that makes me grumpy. So I'm trying to remain optimistic. So these are going in the ground today. I'm going to go on a bed further up here. I'm swapping these where a main crop was due to go, because the main crops aren't going in for a month or two. So I'm going to try again. I do have plenty of second early Charlotte and Kestrel in tubs, both at home and here. So, you know, it's not a salad potatoes aren't a washout for me. It's just that, you know, last year the Kestrel crop was so good and so untouched by pests that I was really looking forward to, you know, growing them. And I've never had real success in the pots. There's never much of a crop and they're always very small. Anyway, I can't change the weather, and this is truly the worst I can remember. This, I mean, it's May in a couple of days. This will be the first time in the 7 years I've been here that we haven't been able to drive around the back. We were driving around the back in February, and then the rain started about the first week of March, and it has not stopped. And it's raining right now. I mean, the sun coming up is glorious. It is, you know, what a weird year. So yeah, I still haven't. I mean, I've parked around the back maybe 5 times this year, if that. And of course, I've carried all these seeds across. It's a hell of a long way to carry them. Anyway, welcome to my plot. I have actually got quite a lot to do today, and it's about. What is it? I can tell you exactly. My watch strap broke. It's another thing that's made me grumpy. Oh, it's exactly 6 o'clock and the sun is up, the rain is pounding, and I've got lots to do. But I brought my breakfast with me, so I'm going to have that first, and then a cup of coffee, and then I might venture out into the rain. Well, there's where I'm going to leave my flowers. That is all flowers, there's no vegetables there at all. So they're all germinating, ready for my cut flower bed. And we shall see how that goes over the summer. But they're put there so that John can water them should the need arise. And if I can pan you around, the daffodils still look good, and the pond is always a joy in any weather. Well, the perpetual spinach is very, very slowly but certainly surely starting to grow. So it's had that pause that I usually experience when I put crops out. They have that little bit of transplant shock, but now they're starting to move, which is good news because we do like our spinach. And these are all the clubroot resistant brassicas. There's 1 or 2 courgettes sat there, but these have all got to go, or most of them have got to go in the ground. Some of them are still a bit small, but they won't last in there. They're too big for the cold frame. So today, if the weather permits me, I'm going to lift the nets off the brassica beds and plant some of these, and it's mostly cauliflowers and broccoli. The smaller ones are the cabbages. So there's a big job today. And I said the peas are doing all right. Of course the peas do like their water, and yeah, they're looking good. There's signs of growth, and they're starting to show tendrils, which means they'll start to hook onto those Heras frames soon. And here's the first load of beetroot that I sowed, and in my ineptness I thought, oh, I haven't allocated a bed for beetroot, I'll stick them just here. And they haven't moved much, but they are starting to grow. And then I realised I had allocated a bed, which is empty. So I've got another load, another tray growing in the greenhouse at home, and they will go in the allocated bed, which is down the bottom next to the rose arch. And you'll see these two compost bays have got the lids lifted. That's because they're full of leaf mould. And I find over the last few years, because I forget about the leaf mould and just leave it alone, it dries out and doesn't rot down as much as it could. So I'm going to make a conscious effort this year to keep it moist, hence the lids are raised while it's raining. Well, one job I did this week was clean out all these ditches, sharpen up the edges, get rid of all the weeds, and I really think this grass with the comfrey is quite attractive. And of course I grow the comfrey deliberately to use as a fertiliser, and they're all the way around this bed. But I brought you here actually to show, I don't know how well it's going to show up. I always read and see on films that you should plant your leeks when they're pencil thickness. Well, I've never managed that. These are a lot thinner than pencil thickness, and there's about 100 in there now, and I think this weather will probably be doing them a favour. But they were all puddled in, and they look okay at the moment. They are very, very thin, so you know, in a week or two I hope I see signs of growth. But we're not going to go short of leeks if this lot grow. I've got some, I've written down some stuff. I'm fascinated, and of course, if you're just a normal person reading the normal media, you probably aren't aware of these social justice warriors and all this nonsense going on in the transgender debate, and all, it's all. I find it all utter nonsense and yet fascinating at the same time, and all this woke nonsense that even my parents have heard of the word woke. So it's getting out, into society and bringing us all to our knees with drivel. And I've noticed a few things in the last week or so, and then I've got some funny and interesting facts for you. First of all, I've been fascinated over the COVID last 3 years. I live in Wales. My allotment is in Gloucestershire, but I live 3 miles away in Chepstow in South Wales. So we come under the Welsh Government, and it's fascinated me over the last 3 years how incompetent and inept. I mean, not that the British government is any better, but the Welsh, Mark Drakeford, what a true, it's only my personal opinion, awful state that he's, bringing Wales to its knees. And of course, because he's Labour, and the Welsh only ever vote Labour, he could do what he likes, and they'll just keep voting for him. It's a frightening thought. Anyway, the Brecon Beacons, that's only my personal opinion, of course. Other opinions are available. The Brecon Beacons, they're now known, I can't, don't know what the word is, never going to know it, can't spell it, can't say it, never going to use it. As are the 4/5 of the Welsh people who don't speak Welsh. Whatever it's called. But it will always be, to me and my family, the Brecon Beacons. I saw something, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a drive in society to call women by anything other than the word woman. For example, I've heard now that the NHS are asking men if they might be pregnant before they have an MRI scan. And they've started calling it chest feeding, not breastfeeding. And there's all this nonsense going on. Anyway, it was on an American TV programme, where else? And there was this woman on who was extremely woke. And she used the term, and I'd never heard it before, vulva owners instead of woman. What's wrong with the word woman? Well, of course, I'm not going to go there. But they were talking about, I don't know, something to do with transgender, and she said, and of course, vulva owners. And the male host, there was a male and female host, he misheard her and said, I'm sorry, what's this got to do with vulva owners? She said, no, vulva owners. And he said, oh, you mean women? Anyway, I thought that was hilarious, that we've reached a state what's going on inside her brain that she thinks the term vulva owner is better than woman. because only women can have a vulva. Certainly the case when I did biology. I don't know if that's changed. If it has, please somebody let me know. Anyway, on to something a little lighter. I didn't know this. I was watching a podcast with Al Murray, who is the pub landlord comedian, but he's also a highly intelligent historian. And he was talking about World War One and General Montgomery. And of course Montgomery was the Second World War, but stay with me. In the First World War, in France, 75,000 British soldiers were taken away from the front line and hospitalised with trench foot. Now, I've heard of trench foot. I was highly aware of it when I served, and we had a lot of discipline and training about foot hygiene, because trench foot is an extremely painful, debilitating condition. Yeah, so the British lost 75,000 troops to trench foot, which is a staggering number. However, and this is the bit I didn't know, at the same time we lost 450,000 soldiers hospitalised to VD. Now, if you don't know, if you're a young person, VD is now called, well, God knows what it's now called, but I think sexually transmitted infection. Well, back then it was called venereal disease. Yeah, 450,000 British soldiers hospitalised with sexually transmitted diseases. Wow! Anyway, Montgomery, who served in the First World War, was acutely aware of this. And so come the Second World War, when he had his own brigade, he was a brigade commander initially, he put out a memo to his commanders to instruct a case of fraternising with the locals, shall we say. And he didn't want to lose troops to this completely unnecessary debilitating disease. So he sent out a memo, and he got into a lot of trouble for it. And he said, he sent it out, and it was titled "Horizontal Refreshments." Should your troops require horizontal refreshment, they should refrain from using the local prostitutes. I just thought that was fantastic. Horizontal refreshment, anyone? Here's some other, nothing to do with Montgomery. It's impossible to lick your own elbow. All over the country, people. Yeah. Pigs cannot look up at the sky. The Sudan has 255 pyramids. Egypt has 138. That's incredible, isn't it? I've never heard of the Sudan and pyramids mentioned in the same sentence. And the last World War II Japanese soldier surrendered in 1974. He didn't get the memo. That is quite interesting. Right, well, that's them ground laid. Second early potato estima. Right, just got to get them dug in the ground in this glorious weather. Let's get to it. Well, for better or for worse, they're in. 21 second early salad potatoes, estima. Let's hope we have better luck this time. I've seen a fair bit in the news recently about alleged bullying of civil servants by government ministers, and I remember a few months ago there was something in the news about the women's gymnasts team, allegations of bullying, and you know, I think it's symptomatic of a weaker society. I don't think, you know, it's only my opinion. I have no facts on which to base this, but I suspect that the two ministers concerned, and I'm sure there'll be more, haven't been bullying anyone. They're just taskmasters, and these civil servants are just weak individuals who don't like being told what to do. in a stern and gruff voice. And I think that goes back to schooling. I think schooling, you know, I had 3 children go through the British school system. The best education they ever got was in Northern Ireland, where they still had the 11 plus system. Isn't it interesting how the old systems seem to work best? But, you know, I can remember receiving a letter from the headmaster saying that sports day was going to be teams, not individual races, so that they didn't suffer the humiliation of not winning. You know, when you've got a school system that they've got to get good, and everyone gets an A grade now, and no one's allowed to fail anything, and they're all told they're special, and so on and so forth. When you then take that product into the workplace, and things get tough and hard, and there are deadlines, and you know things have to be done in a certain way, these people crumble. That's just my my humble opinion, and I think that's, you know, it's one of the reasons why society, British society, is failing at every level. I mean, you know, if you can tell me something in Britain that works well, I'd be interested to hear about it. And that led me on to thinking about just a tiny little thing that happened when we lived in Germany. We lived in a town called Hameln. You'll know it as the Pied Piper town of Hamelin. Well, in Germany it's pronounced differently. It was a lovely place to live. We thoroughly enjoyed our 6 years out there. But on one occasion we were going out to Cyprus for a holiday with my brother and his wife, who lived out in Cyprus at the time. And we had to get a train to Dusseldorf for the airport to Cyprus. And the train was 2 trains, and we had to change in the middle. And I was in the local travel agent in town, and this German lady was putting together the itinerary for me. She spoke perfect English, as they all do, and she said, you have a connecting train, you have to swap platforms, and but don't worry, you've got 3 minutes between trains. And I said, oh, could you make that, you know, maybe an hour, get the hour earlier train initially, so we've got a bigger... She said, sir, you don't need that. Excuse me. Itchy nose. 3 minutes is plenty to walk 1 platform. And I said, and she said, sir, trust me, it's a train. There's you know, it rolls off at a certain time. The next train leaves at a certain time. The timetable is perfectly workable. It's on a track, she said. And she made a point of pointing this out to allay my fears. The train is on a track, so we know what time it leaves, and we know what speed it goes at, and we know the distance it's got to go. It's a mathematical equation. We know when it arrives. It's very simple. Anyway, I wasn't prepared to argue with her. And I said, if this doesn't work, I should be coming back to see you. Anyway, we had a laugh, and off I went. And sure enough, we got on the first train, got into the station, and I said to the kids, I've got the 2 suitcases. I said, right, kids, when the doors of this train open, we've got to get to that other platform in 3 minutes, so we're going to be running. So we ran up and over, and the kids and the wife kept up with me, and we got onto the train. Sure enough, it was sat there waiting. Put the suitcases on the rack, sat down, and round came the Germans, walking steadily, reading their papers as they went, and got on the train, sat down, and 3 minutes later, it went out the station. You know, simple. So, you know, 2 weeks later, I went back to see that lady in the travel agent. I said, you were right. She said, of course I'm right. Why would it not? I said, you should come to Britain. Yeah, fascinating. And with the railway theme, years later, when I was out in the Gulf, the Second Gulf War, the divers had to clear Qasr port. Iraq only had 1 port. It's called Qasr, and then there's a railway link from the Qasr port up to Baghdad. 1 railway, 1 train. And we had TA with us this time. First time I'd ever been involved with TA soldiers on operations. And one of them was a network rail engineer. And he was filtered out of the system and put in charge of getting this train running because it was derelict. And he said, you know, I saw him a few weeks later. He says, do you know what? I've worked in network rail for 30 years, and this is the first time I've got a train running on time. It's such a joy. Because there's 1 track and 1 train. It wasn't complicated, but he got it working, and he was a real, you know, he loved his job, and he never thought, I'm sure, when he signed up to go away for operations with the British Army in war, that he'd be running a train up and down to Baghdad. Yeah, quite interesting. Not sure if they'll show up, but there are very, very distinctive carrot seedlings. Some pots have got more than others, but I do have success in the carrot department. That's the first 4 pots that were sown one weekend. A week later I sowed another 4 and they've yet to show, but so far I'm fairly pleased. And these tubs, which have got Charlotte and Kestrel in, the ones I sowed initially, which are obviously at this end, they are now showing, as well as all the weeds from the cow muck. So we should be okay for potatoes this year. Oh, stopped raining finally. So, what do you do if you've got clubroot on your plot or on the site? Well, clubroot obviously affects the roots of the brassicas, and that includes Swedes. But it doesn't mean you can't grow brassicas. In fact, I've had clubroot on my plot for 6 of the 7 years I've been here, and we always have a great crop of all the brassicas. So the first thing to know is that all the seed suppliers now have a collection of clubroot resistant brassicas. So that's the first thing, buy the clubroot resistant. I've never, tempting fate, I've never had a clubroot resistant brassica of any description fail due to clubroot. So the first one I'm planting here today is the brassica Monclano, which is the broccoli or Calabrese. So choose the clubroot resistant. Second thing is, let the plants grow to a good size. Now ideally I'd like this to grow a little bit bigger, and it's in, you know, normal shop bought compost, so that won't have clubroot. So it's had a good start, it's a good size plant, it could be bigger. And then when you plant it in the ground, put a generous handful of lime in the planting hole before you put the plant in. Firm it in, brassicas like firm ground, and that combination of the clubroot resistant variety and the garden lime works for me. Other limes are available, and like I say, I don't want to tempt fate, but I've never had a problem, so I can recommend that, and there's no reason for you not to grow them even with clubroot on your site. Well, that took a while, but that is 2 beds. That one's full. That one's about 2/3 full of cauliflower and Calabrese. I have yet to put any cabbage in the ground, so we'll see if the slugs, you know, I'm not hopeful. This time last year there were no slugs, the ground was rock hard and I was watering like mad. It's not the case this year. Anyway, they had to go in the ground. I can't leave them for a week while I'm away, so we shall see. Right, let's get them covered. Well, the asparagus is romping away now. I'm going to have to start thinking about putting a framework round them so that they don't all flop over in the summer. But they've all come back, which is great news. Roll on next year. Right, that's the asparagus boxed in so that the ferns don't flop over in the summer. Well, as is always the case on a Sunday, got a lot done. The weather didn't help. I mean, it's raining now, and but in the middle of the day, the rain turned to drizzle, which made life a bit easier. So I've got all my cauliflowers and broccoli in today in those two beds, which I'm pleased about. The cabbages and the Brussels sprouts are still in pots, and they're under Enviromesh or in a cold frame, waiting to grow a bit before they go in. I just hope the slugs don't annihilate them. Anyway, can't help that. Yeah, so I've had a good day. The second early potato estimate is all in. Nice to see some carrots coming up, and I brought up some more chitted parsnips. So as none of my parsnips have germinated, I have redone those tubs with, I had quite a lot of chitted parsnip seeds, so I've been able to do all those again, and we'll see if, we just need the weather to warm up. Unfortunately, the forecast for the next 2 weeks is wet, but I can't change that. So yeah, a good day on the plot. I won't be here next week, and I might not be here the week after, because we're away for a week. Well, actually we're away for 9 days, so I probably won't be able to post until the latter half of May. Anyway, can't help that. Enjoy the coronation if you're going to watch it, and I shall see you when I see you. So thank you for watching, thanks for subscribing, and please leave a comment and a thumbs up if you can. And I will see you at the next available opportunity. Until then, look after yourselves, take care, bye for now.